Welcome to the Intercourse Show. I'm your host, Mr. B. Uh, Thank you for joining us live for today's show. We are responding to, I guess CAMRON is doing a live show on Talk of Fleet in response to the whole thing, dash conflict that they've been having. So that show's about to start. And you know, jump in and watch and comment on it. It's entertainment. I gotta pause this. Your man is he asked him a direct question like, yo, why you try to screw me, bro? Why would you asking for 50% of my publishing just to give me a car when I was, just trying to make it in a deal? Like that's something that, the label should have provided with in advance and things of that nature. This dude, rather than answering the question direct, is trying to say, well, Puff did this to Biggie. He was giving him 15,000 for his publishing, and this is what I had to see around. So the messed up things I saw other executives doing to rappers who didn't know any better, I thought I could try it on you. That's essentially what he's saying. But he's skating around. This is a really good point. I mean, Cam's adding some light. That's why it's always important to give both sides of the story, because it's true. If you heard the way Dame told the original story, he left a lot of details out. And if you heard it from Dame's point of view, of course you're gonna want to side with Dame and be like, oh, okay, this dude probably did him dirty. But when you hear Cam giving you context about what actually happened and how this dude has stepped in to help out with this dude's family and things of that nature, it changes how you can see it, right? I mean, obviously I'm not involved in their lives or whatnot, but I'm just an outside spectator looking in. And it does sound like, if this dude has been around to help and you talking to him crazy like he's your son, you know what I mean? He's a grown man who's the same age as you. Not everybody gonna take being talked to a certain way. And I think that's always been a little bit of a critique on Dame, is the way he went about doing business. He would bark on people, especially in the corporate world. That's just not well received, and people don't want to work with somebody who does business in such a brash and overtly aggressive way. So it seems like that's the personality trait that tends to linger for Dame. And even though he may be a good dude, have a decent heart, I think his style of doing things may rub some people the wrong way. All right, let's continue to hear the rest. This is a lot of context, though. I mean, it's changed my perspective on how the situation was painted. I think him showcasing this really kind of shows that, Dame is probably a little sensitive about a lot of things that went on. And he's maybe even subconsciously lashing out at people he felt like betrayed him. But when you put it on the perspective, I don't really see too many things that CAMRON did wrong. I mean, maybe a couple things with the movie and his views on it and things of that nature, but I still think there's love there between the two. All right, so I got to weigh in a little bit. It sounds like CAMRON just being honest about it. It doesn't seem like he's doing this with great pleasure either. You know what I'm saying? It does seem like CAMRON, is reluctantly responding, not because he's trying to out the dude, but just because. And I think, I don't know, the more I watch this stuff, the more I'm thinking like, Dame was on the Mount Rushmore of innovators for hip hop. And I think, since the breakup with Jay's been on this astronomical run where he's getting billions of dollars, and it looks like he's down and out. Now, I can respect the fact that Dame's a guy that's going to put up his own money. He's going to keep hustling. He's going to keep doing his thing. So a lot of salute to that. You know what I mean? But at the same time, too, I think, sometimes we as humans get in our heads and we start thinking we should be further ahead than where we are. Had this happened and had that happened, had that not happened, or had somebody did this for us, then we would have been here rather than here. And I'm here, and low key you resent that you're somewhere and you think you should be further along. So now, even subconsciously, you may lash out of all the people that you think played a part in preventing you from being where you think you should be. You know what I'm saying? So it sounds like to Cam's point, that there were some things festering up inside of his heart for 20 plus years that bothered him, that he didn't really get a chance to properly channel and talk about. and all the sort of news media about him is negative, and it's not something where people are promoting his projects. It's not something where people are giving him his props for what he accomplished. And I think there's a part of him that kind of resents that, that his name is being brought in a negative light. And that's, as a human being, anybody can understand that. You know what I'm saying? I think that's what it is. But I think at this point, to Dame's point, I mean, he's actually went to bat for a lot of people and really just been a stand-up dude, and you know laid it all on the line for some people, and maybe he felt like they didn't show up in the same way for him. And I think that results in him making comments, joking in a manner that shows some hostility towards them not batting for him the way he batted for them. And ultimately it results in a lot of the relationships disintegrating. It's life. I mean, I don't want to be somebody who's attacking, but I think at its core, that's where it's at. And also, when you have friends, man, sometimes it's not good to flex on your friends. I know we do that all the time, especially in the streets. People, you flex on your man because you got more than him. You be like, your house ain't as big as mine, or your car ain't as fly as mine, or whatever the case. To me, when you're doing that, there's already something off, even if you snapping and doing whatever you're doing, because in a way, that's supposed to be your friend. Whether you got the flyest car or the flyest house, your friend will always be invited in that house. You don't need to flex on him as if he should feel like less than you. And I think there's a part of this where, from what I hear when Cam tells a story, where it seems like that's what it's always about. Like, oh, your house ain't as nice as Kanye's, or your house ain't as nice as mine, or da da da. And for some, they might view it as motivation, like, I gotta get my shit together. For others, they just feel like, yo, you ain't really my friend because, I'm not where you are, but it seems like you beat me over the head because you're a little further ahead than me. And I think these things happen, even though we do it in a joking manner. I think these things end up happening where subconsciously we're shitting on each other, and it's not healthy. It's not a healthy way to build a relationship. And eventually, somebody gonna say something about you, and then they gonna say something about you, and then you take that personal, and that's, now it's like your best friends turns into your worst enemies because these people know the most about you. But because there was these little moments where y'all was in competition with each other, one person was saying one thing, the next person was saying another thing, this sly joke, this comment, this misrepresentation, this, insult, this, lack of promotion, this whatever. Before you know, it's at the point where somebody trying to pay this person's kid to say what happened here, and somebody trying to do this, and somebody trying to make this person look bad. And before you know it, y'all are full-blown enemies, ready to take each other's heads off, pissed off, beefing, online, outside in the open. So to me, as a word of caution, I think it's best that a lot of these conversations get handled offline. But I think because it's online, these guys have just found a way to monetize it and make it entertaining. But I also do think, on the flip side, Dame's calculation is, if people are going to talk about it, let's talk about it, so I too can get the clickbait off of it and promote all the things that I am doing, because these guys aren't promoting it for me anyway. So if this is a way for me to draw the attention with this supposed beef, and then redirect that attention to promote some project or some venture that I'm working on, I think he's all game into it. So what I'm saying is, I think there's an entertainment factor to this. I think these dudes probably still have love for each other and that they can work through it. But obviously they're gonna snap and take shots. But hopefully it doesn't get to a place where it go totally crazy, because some people could say that's what happened with the Biggie and the Tupac thing, right? These guys was cool. Supposedly Biggie used to sleep on Tupac's couch, and they were doing music together at one point, doing shows together. And before you know it, somebody said something slick. Somebody made a song. Somebody did something crazy. Now he talking about sleeping with the man's wife. Now they both dead. You see what I'm saying? Like, it starts little and it grows into something bigger. So, words of caution to people who have friends that they mismanage the relationship, or don't communicate effectively. This thing. So that was the show. just final words, man. I mean, I think it was good to get some context. A lot of times when you've seen these little beefs and stuff go back and forth, you, we only getting little bits and pieces of stories, and sometimes it's hard for you to even understand what's going on, so you can track it. I think this show was very insightful. You know, Cam told his side of the story. There was other guys there who also had their side of the story. But I also see where Dame is coming from. Not so much that he's lashing out, but it's like, imagine if you've been carrying a lot of people. He's carrying his family, and he's been the bad guy the whole time. He's the guy that everybody's got something critical to say about. And the press that he gets is the bad press. And most of the interviews you see, he's like, why don't you ever talk about the good things I'm doing? The children's book, the this, and that. Because it's true. You know, people make careers out of talking shit about people. So I think he gets a lot of bad press, and maybe he believes his friends, the ones he put on, should be doing more to defend him, to protect his image and all that stuff. And when they don't, they become targets as well. You know, I just think that when you're going through stuff, you know, your judgment is a little tough, especially if you feel like the people that should be riding for you aren't riding for you the way you think they should. I don't really hear any malice from these guys, man. I don't really believe there's any hostility there to the point that it can't be worked out. I just think that, you know, people are heard about certain things that happen, and no one's really sitting down and really talking about it and putting it out there like that. And there's these little passive aggressive shots that everybody take at each other. And eventually it brews into something deeper and becomes more and more personal. So that being said, my advice is just that hopefully these guys can sit down and talk and work things out. You know, for anybody who's had, you know, issues with friends and close family members that maybe they felt betrayed them or didn't do enough to defend them or help them or whatever the case, you know, a conversation helps, prayer helps, counseling helps. Do all those things that you have to do to preserve the relationship, because to Cam's point, you know, the only things that you should value besides the materialistic things that people typically value is relationships, man. You got to have a relationship worthy of the journey you've been on. And I think it's a lonely road if, you know, the people you started out with all, you know, disintegrate and go elsewhere and they're not there with you. I think it hurts, it stings, it bothers people. And I think that's what's happening here, is that maybe one person feels like these people never really cared about me. They never really stood out for me or went all out for me like I did. But, you know, they take shots. They work with other people. Excuse you. They work with other people. They do all these other things. But on the same side, too, you know, you could have a relationship where you feel like, yo, you're not preserving the relationship you have with us. On the flip side, the people that they felt left them behind could feel like, yo, you never really nurtured this relationship. You never really took me seriously. You never really gave me my props. And I think that happens. But in the same way, there's a little bit of irony in what Cam said, because, you know, he's got some issues with his brother, Jim Jones, another close friend, and they seem to be on the outs. And I think that's probably something similar that maybe Jim felt about Cam and how he was seen on that. And there's betrayals and things that maybe was mismanaged and mishandled. I mean, I think that's part of growth and part of growing up. And I think, you know, a lot of these things can be resolved with a conversation with just like, yo, this is what it was, and this is how it made me feel. This is what I did because I felt like it wasn't being addressed, and just really kind of squashing it to preserve the relationships. But sometimes too, these moments are the moments where you actually see what's really in people's hearts about you. So it's either going to give you clarity to preserve the relationship, or it's going to further clarify that you shouldn't be in a relationship with the person. So, you know, my advice is, you know, in all you're getting, get understanding, understand the type of people you got around you, the relationships you have, whether it's strong, healthy, and productive, or whether it's destructive and unhealthy for you. So that's my view. That's my take. Thank you for joining me for this 2-hour live stream. We're starting to do more of these live stream shows, you know, of the Intercourse Show. And for those who's not already connected, I definitely encourage you to like and subscribe and stay connected, and also to join the conversation. All right, with that, I wish you all well. Blessings upon you in Jesus' name. Amen. We out. Later.